everyone, and welcome to another episode of Contact Lust, where we review the Necron Codex and then subsequently do a masterclass for our patrons and YouTube members only. So, hopefully, by the time this video is released, YouTube memberships are actually live. So, if you want to support us this way, you can. And yep, that's that. Also, Patreon's still working, so if you'd rather use that platform, feel free to do so. As always, thank you to our wonderful sponsors, the Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani, as well as everyone who's supporting us already over on Patreon. And having said all that, I would like to introduce our guest for tonight. Hello, Gyto.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
Yes, pleasure to have you as always. As mentioned, and since you're the guest, it's obvious that we will be talking about the Necrons. So, Gita, what is your overall opinion on Necrons in the meta right now?
Well, it's gonna be pretty close to, I think, almost everyone's opinion that they are really busted, really good. Like they are, I think, like top 3 army easily. I would even say like top 2. And though they are so good, I think it's a very thin line to like break them and make them actually bad. So I hope GW don't push the hammer on them too hard. So I will have my army, like my only army that I actually own and play usually, still intact.
We'll see. You never know when the nerf hammer will strike and how bad will it strike. Yep, I think top 3 is a fair assessment. We've seen at Pyra Cup that all of the teams took Necrons as the only faction that actually showed in each and every team, which I think is telling. Right, so why don't we jump right into it? So let's go through the codex, and the army rule to begin with is reanimation protocols. And I believe that has that changed from the index from what it was
Mm,
initially?
I think not. Like maybe there were some clarifications down the line, but like the general idea and how it works as the army rule, it doesn't change really.
Okay, so for the sake of it, at the end of your command phase, each unit from the Necron army activates its reanimation protocols and reanimates D3 wounds. So that means it either heals a model in the unit or brings back a destroyed model with.
If the unit is on full wounds, then you can bring back the model, and it's like half as many wounds as you have more than you healed. Like
Hmm?
so, if you have someone wounded that lost 1 wound and you roll a 3, you can bring a guy on 2 wounds. Like heal one, bring a guy on 2 wounds, basically.
Yep. So that in itself doesn't sound that bad. On the index, there were a lot of ways to boost this ability or to activate it numerous times. So before we go into the detail, is that still possible, or you can't really play around it that much anymore?
Um, for some units, in theory, it's still possible. It's gonna be less than in the index, but it can be quite close. Though it costs so much that there's basically no point putting any points just to get your animations better. Like if you get your animations better by, let's say, accident, because you want like an, I don't know, reanimator, which is now just a quite tanky piece for what it costs, it's fine, but I wouldn't like focus your list about reanimation anymore. Like it's
Mhm.
very strong rule on some of the units, especially ones that are in like almost every Necron list, and let's say that having a Satan that have like 12 wounds heal 3 wounds every turn. It's very powerful, but unlike most other units, it's just a very cool addition. Something you can keep in back of your head that you can like, if you play it right, it's gonna have an impact for a game, but it's not like a army rule that always do something for you amazing, like always do something big for you. Like it's you need
Hmm.
to play play a little bit around it, and some lists can do it better, some don't. So yeah.
Okay, got it. So, moving on, we've got 6 detachments as usual. I'm seeing this for the first time. Just scrolling
Mm-hmm.
through it. I think there are 6.
Five
Uh,
actually.
5 actually. Okay, so one less than expected. And the first one is Awakened Dynasty. I think that's the index one.
Yeah, it's an index one, though some of the stratagems, some of the abilities change, and
Mm-hmm.
usually they get just a little bit worse. Not everyone, not everything, because for example, reanimating character I think got better, but other than that, most of those got a little bit worse. Like you don't have any more fury roll to wound, you just have fury roll to hit for 1 CP. Some like there are stuff in there that to get like was nerfed, uh, but it's still like one of the attachments that can be played, I would say.
Okay. Okay, so for the sake of it, the detachment rule is if a character is in a unit, then you get +1 to hit. There are 4 enhancements. The first one's the Veil of Darkness. So that's basically a once per battle teleport. At the end of your opponent's turn, you can pick a unit up and then place it in your next movement phase, 9 away from enemy models. Then we have a Nether Realm Casket that gives the stealth ability to a bearer as and his units. So this is only applicable whilst the bearer is leading a unit.
Mhm.
Then we have a Nagic Dermal Bond that gives a 4-up Feel No Pain, but just for the model that's taken it, and a Phasal Subjugator. Well,
It's the +1 to hit aura, basically.
yeah, but it's an aura, yeah, so it doesn't have to lead a unit. So
Yeah.
pretty much, I think these are unchanged from the index.
The slight nerf to the Hazel Subjugator, because before it was anything within 6, it was like Sovereign Coronal or something. So
Uh-huh.
everything within 6 was being treated as being led.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in essence +1 to hit, but also stratagems work better for those units. Now it's just like straight up +1 to hit aura.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a
Right.
little bit nerfed, but overall, like all of those enhancements are fine, especially Veil of Darkness and the +1 to hit aura are just amazing
Mm-hmm.
enhancements. So, like that, I wouldn't say it's the best pick at this time to play this detachment, but if you pick this detachment, is basically because Veil of Darkness and the +1 to hit aura are very strong.
Okay. And then we've got the stratagems. So we've got the resurrection of a character with half of its starting number of wounds remaining. We've got, what else do we have here? So,
Reanimation after
yep,
someone finishes attacks. Then the
+1 strength
strength
and
and
melee
AP, someone
weapons.
leading. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, we can like go through them and what changed maybe.
Yeah,
So
so,
the first one, the animation of a character, it's at the end of the phase now. Like before, it was in the moment that character dies, then was FAQ in WTC that it's at the end of your enemy unit activation. Now it's just at the end of the phase, which is just straight up better because you cannot
mm-hmm.
shoot the character twice with 2 different units and just like deal with him. You need to like do it into the separate phases. Then the reanimation, I think it's basically the same. So you can like after someone shoots you, you can reanimate a little bit, or charge you, or like deal damage to you. You can reanimate a little bit. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have the very strong combat stratagem that gives you +1 strength and +1 AP if someone is leading a unit, which means a lot of Necron mediocre melee units, because like their base stats are not amazing, can get really strong into certain targets. It's like even if you use it on something like raids, they get so much better just because of the stratagem. Obviously there are other problems with raids in this detachment, but like anything you're gonna use it on, it's a really good one, and it's also battle tactic, which is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the Protocol of the Sudden Storm, which is basically giving you assault on your shooting weapons. Very good stratagem, like helps you do missions, help you like get angles. You can also reroll advance when someone is leading a unit. Then you have the Protocol of the Conquering Tyrant. Uh, so you get rerolls once to hit, and for reroll to hit instead if the Necron character is leading a unit and it's need to be within half range. This one is like very big nerf into some of the combos. Like back in the index, you have like a Praetorian blob dealing a shit ton of mortal wounds. Now you cannot
Mm-hmm.
have it because before it was reroll wounds, now it's reroll hit rolls. So it doesn't scale that well into a lot of stuff. Though Gauss weapons with the little hits get a little bit better because of that. And last one, which is very cool now. Before it was 1 CP and it was like you can shoot back with the unit that was shot. Now this Protocol of the Vengeful Stars is 2 CP, but after one of the units is attacked, you can shoot back, and you need to shoot that back at the target that was shooting you, but it's you can shoot, I think, with anything that is within 6 of the unit that was attacked, right? And
It
had
says
a
it
factor,
says
right?
one Necron's character that was
Unit.
within 6 of a Necron's unit that was destroyed. So well, one Necron's character unit, right? So anything being led by a character is actually
Eligible to shoot back.
eligible, right? Yeah.
And you use the unit that was not attacked. You use unit that is near something. It's
Mm-hmm.
situational because the unit that was attacked need to die. But now instead of having like half a unit that we're gonna shoot back your opponent, you have the whole unit that's gonna shoot back your opponent
Yep.
because you attacking with the unit that was not attacked. So it's supposedly having more wounds in it still and more damage output.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is very good. It's very situational and costly, but if you like manage to have, I don't know, have like a Locust Lord leading Locust Destroyers, any kind, and something dies near it, you just have like a free turn of shooting with very decent profiles.
Yep. Yep. So the Necron Codex has been out for a while, and I must admit, I don't think I've seen a single list on the Awakened Dynasty doing much. Although I do think that David Gaylord actually played some tournaments with that detachment. But just how would you rate it? If there are 5 in the book, where would you place it?
It's right in the middle. It's It's exactly on third place.
Mm-hmm.
Just the reason why you didn't see anyone play it is one, everyone is bored, and like mm, every everyone was playing Index for so long, and then you have Codex, so no one wants to play the same shit. And also, the more important reason is the detachments above this one are really good. Like they are far away from everything else that Necron have. You have basically 5 detachments, but 2 of those are just like hugely better than the rest of them. So that's the reason. But if I would like, let's say tomorrow Necrons get nerfed and the nerfs are targeting not the units but the detachments, I think that one is the next to look for.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind if the nerfs come, which they surely will at one point. But we move on to the Annihilation Legion, which I think is a bit of a meme detachment right now, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
so
at this
mhm,
point, I
go on.
actually don't remember what it does. I remember we had like a podcast that I was like really into like every Necron stuff and discussing everything in detail. At this point, is the rules are so ridiculous bad that like basically there is one enhancement that is good and it's like a aura of no fallback on like a roll on 3 up or 4 up. I don't remember exactly. And like we can go through it obviously, but it's
Yep,
not gonna be good. It's not ever good.
let's do it for the scholars. Well, we can do it fast, if anything. So the detachment rule is each time a destroyer, cult, or flayed one's unit declares a charge, you can re-roll the charge roll. And if one or more targets of that charge are below half strength, you can also add +1 to set
Mm.
charge roll. So not great. Uh, Especially
Yeah.
I don't think that Necron combat units are generally solid picks, but we'll get to that maybe.
Like for any reason, if they even were solid picks and you build your list around melee, it's quite annoying to first deal damage to your opponent,
Mm,
presumably in melee, and then you finish them off by charging another unit into them like a turn later, right? Right. So
hmm
it's not the best rule, the +1 to charge right, in this version.
Yep. Then the enhancements. So they start with Eternal Madness. If the burst unit loses a model and it hasn't for that phase on the 4-up, it gets to fight. So the fight on death on the 4-up. Ingrained Superiority. So each time you make a critical wound, you get an increased AP on those.
Yeah,
Soulless
but
Reaper is that's the one you mentioned. So each time an enemy unit within engagement range of the burst unit selected to fall back on a 3-up, that unit cannot fall back and must remain stationary. I guess
Mhm.
that's probably the most interesting one here. And the last one, Eldritch Nightmare. At the start of the fight phase, battle shock tests for everyone within engagement range of the bearer. And
Yeah.
not even the bearer's unit, so it's just within the model.
Yeah, the
So
same with the
realistically only
better.
one.
Yeah, same is the better AP. It only works for the leading character, the character that have the enhancement, and there are just not many good melee characters that can take these enhancements. Like straight up, actually none. So good, like they are melee characters in Necrons. They are just bad at melee.
Okay. Okay. Understood. So we've got the enhancements. There are some stratagems here as well. Let's go through them. So we've got Masks of Death. Uh, Subtract 1 from the hit roll when being targeted, and
Mhm.
all of these can only be all of these stratagems can only target Destroyer Cult or Flayed One's units.
Yeah.
So when you're the target of shooting or melee attack, you can get -1 to hit to defend yourself better. The next one, Spore of Frailty. So if you're attacking something below starting strength, it's +1 to hit. If below half strength, It's also +1 to wound. Murderous reanimation. So when you destroy an enemy unit or you make
Get
it
it below
become
half strength.
below half strength, you can activate reanimation protocols. The next one is a 6 inches pile-in or consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got blood-fueled cruelty. When an enemy unit falls back, you can do mortal wounds and then move, like chase that unit. But your unit can then make a normal move, but must end that move as close as possible to the enemy unit. But it doesn't say anything about being able to go into
No.
engagement range. So I guess that's not possible, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Like if it was, you can actually chase down someone into melee, that would be fine. But
Mm.
you just make a normal move, you cannot get within 1 inch with normal move. So yeah, they just chase them up. You deal like D3 mortals. So if 3 mortals, if you get lucky and you like follow them a little bit, but your
Yeah.
opponent chooses the direction you're gonna go. So basically,
Yeah.
by yeah,
And most importantly, you don't end up in engagement range. So
yes,
it's you're not protecting yourself with smooth too much. And last but or maybe least, Insanity's Ire. Um, so you can then another one where you can make a normal move, but if you lose models from a given unit, then you can move
yeah.
closer to the enemy that was just shooting you.
Like those stratagems could be decent if the melee destroyer cult units were like really tanky and like if you think they're gonna be in melee for a long time and they can like take a hit and just chase down your opponents, that could be a decent detachment to counter like only shooting armies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but just profiles of those units don't really allow you to do it. Like if they gonna get hit by something, like almost all of them gonna die, and you can spend your 1 CP to normal move towards your opponent with like 1 or 2 guys that gonna get blasted by the second unit because you are even closer. So yeah.
Doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, it's basically straight up the worst detachment. Like it pretends that your army gonna be fighting in like prolonged melee
Mm-hmm.
and they not like neither side gonna die and you can just take a lot of hits and just keep going, which is completely not true. In the meta, you just gonna get hit, and you even if you gonna use some of those stratagems, it's not gonna matter at all. Yeah, it's just bad. It's the worst detachment. I think we did our best to go through it.
Oh, if even you have nothing to come up with here, then it must be real bad. Well, I think your favorite one's up next, so maybe we should go to that. Canoptek Court.
Yeah, definitely the best one. A controversial opinion, as I find out on
Yes,
Terra.
very much so. But you can have your own opinion.
Yeah.
And yep, it's up to the others to prove you wrong.
Mhm.
So the detachment rule is called Power Matrix, and it functions a lot like the Chaos Demon's Shadow in the Warp thing. So certain areas of the battlefield are considered to be within your army's power matrix as follows. So your deployment zone is always in the power matrix. If at the start of any phase you control at least half of the objective markers in No Man's Land, then No Man's Land is also within the power matrix. And then the same goes for the opponent's deployment zone. So again, if you control at least half of the objective markers therein, uh, that zone is within the power matrix. So what does being within the power matrix give you is that if a cryptic and canoptic units can reroll the hit roll if they hold you within the power matrix. If they're not, then they reroll a hit roll of 1.
Mhm. So that's a straight up buff to damage output of canoptech units, which is very needed for them because they hit on force base. So all the canoptech unit get a little bit better because it's like straight up damage output. Even if you're not in your power matrix, you still can reroll once. Uh, it's just very good rule for
Mhm.
a detachment. It's basically oaths of moment now because I think oaths of moment got changed to just reroll hits
Yeah,
as good
they
as
did.
remember. Yeah, so you have oaths of moment on every target in your opponent army as long as you're in your power matrix. And even the reroll once if you're out of power matrix in some cases is still good because it's Cryptek and Canoptek. Cryptek is usually in this detachment leading some immortals. They hit on trees, so even if you don't get your full reroll, you still like hitting on trees reroll in ones. Very good.
Mhm.
Doomstalkers are another very like usually picked option in this detachment. If they stay stationary, they hitting on trees because of heavy. Then you reroll once, even if you don't have pyrometrics. It's just straight up a good rule, and it also some of the stratagems. I think like one uh, stratagem and one enhancements need you to be within the power matrix to work, but they are not like the main ones.
Mhm. Okay. And moving on to enhancements. So we've got the Dimensional Sanctum. Oh, and by the way, all of these can only be picked by Cryptex.
Mhm.
Dimensional Sanctum gives Infiltrate to the bearer and his unit. So a very good enhancement to have.
The best one,
And
and it's only 20 points also.
perfect. So we should always pick it. Now we've
Mhm.
got the Hyperphasic Fulcrum. So that gives you an additional reroll of wounds of 1 if you're within the power matrix. How are you within? Auto Divinator is some CP generation. 2 up. That's
But your opponent need to have an ability that gives them
oh
additional
yes.
CP. So like Leontus,
Mm-hmm.
Altar Sky, the Skyleaper, the Eldar Altar, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't work if someone like drops card and get a CP. There needs to be ability on your
Mm-hmm.
opponent's unit that gives them CP, and then on 2 up you also get it. It's very situational, but it's quite good into some of the better armies in the meta, so it's fine to have it. Only 15
Yeah,
points.
but
If you have spare, it's just okay.
yeah, exactly. If you have spare, because it's a bit too situational to
Well,
always pick it.
yes, if I need to drop something, I can drop this. It's not like mandatory, but it's still really good because the stratagems in this detachment are really good. So any
Mm-hmm.
CP in any matchup you can get are just gold.
Right. So we'll get to stratagems in a moment, but first we've got the Metallodermal Tesla Weave, which I think is probably the worst one of these four here. So once per phase, when an enemy unit selects the bearer's unit as a target of a charge, you can deal mortal wounds to them.
Mhm.
D3 on a 2 to 5 and 3 on a 6.
To be fair, I think it's in some matchups is better than the hyper phasic fulcrum. Like those two are on the same level, which is
Mm-hmm.
you pick it if you have spare points. Like the hyper phasic fulcrum, the reroll ones to wound, and the immortal wounds. I think depending on matchups, one or the other is better, and one is 10 points, one is 15. They are both not needed in the
Oh,
list
they're
if you
all
have
cheap.
spare. Yeah, they're all cheap. You just pick them if you have some spare points and you don't have anything to spend on it. And I wouldn't like say this is the worst one because actually against some targets when the like quite elite infantry is charging into you, like killing 2 or 3 guys, can make the difference
Mm-hmm.
about losing all raids or one raid surviving, which is a huge deal in Necrons, right? So it's not that
Mm-hmm.
bad
Okay.
actually.
Fair enough. And then we have the stratagems that you've mentioned that are very powerful.
Yeah, I think
S-
it's straight up the strongest stratagems in the game. Like this detachment have at this point in the game, I think have the strongest stratagems that there are straight up.
Okay. Why don't you walk us through them then?
Okay, so first one is Curse of the Cryptek for 1 CP. It's basically after one of your characters dies, the enemy unit that kills it gets like everything that is Canoptek gets +1 to hit and +1 to wound against that unit to the end of the game, which synergizes with like Illuminor, Sheras, Technomancers in Brave units. Like
Mm-hmm.
if your opponent gets through your extremely durable unit, it's usually something nasty that kills it, and like most of your army get +1 to hit, +1 to wound against that target. It's just great. It's also very situational, and like I don't use it as often as some other of the stratagems, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very good one to have. Um, Seizure of Eradication, 2 CP. It's basically dev wounds in either shooting or fight phase. After the nerfs, it works only for Canoptek unit, not Cryptek or Canoptek, so we no longer have the Tesla Immortals that did anything that is an objective,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is very good for the game. It's extremely situational stratagem for now, because the strength of it was that it was battle tactic and work for immortals. Now you cannot have a free stratagem on Canoptek unit because
Mm-hmm.
you cannot get an overlord in that unit. It's very, very, very situational, but against 2-up safe opponents that raids wound pretty well, like Greynats models or Votan
Mm-hmm.
Terminators. It can be useful one to give like a little bit more damage to your raids that are bad AP and your opponent have 2-up safe armor of contempt. Other
Yep.
than that, it's just like you don't use it. You either use it like once or twice in a game against Grey Knights and Votan Terminators, or you don't use it at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Next one is Solar Pulse. This one is actually quite good. Like I don't see people use it too much, but it's basically you pick a objective within 18 inches of a cryptek, and you have a lot of crypteks in the army because that's the detachment basically having crypteks. You just ignore cover for anything that is touching that objective, standing on this objective. Uh, it might not look that powerful, but if you consider that everything in this game have cover because of the rules,
Yeah.
and you basically gonna try to kill stuff that is on an objective, getting that extra AP by ignoring the cover, especially for something like Tesla Immortals with Sheras near that improves their AP, or even Doomstalker shooting at something that can have Armor of Contempt and just making sure they're gonna get a shitty save no matter what. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very good one. Still situational, very good one. Uh, then we have reactive subroutines, one of the best stratagems in the game, like straight up broken. Um, it's the reactive move. If
Mm-hmm.
something gets within 9 inches, finishes that move within 9 inches, you can make a move with your Canoptek unit up to 6. Like some other armies have this same exact rule, like Tyrannids on their Vanguard, or like the Space Marine with also like their Vanguard or something. But the difference here is you can use it on very durable units like
Mm-hmm.
Wraiths, or you can use it on units that don't really want to be in melee at any point, like Doomstalkers.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is like basically the ones you're gonna use almost every game, or like actually every game, especially how it interacts with the Wraiths ability. Like that's one is just gold, one of the strongest stratagems in the game to have. Next one is contemporary shift. It's when someone targets your unit, your canoptic unit, you can make it lone up, and then the opponent can change the target. I think this one is also in the Tyrannids, and it's the same difference. Tyrannids can make their squishy unit lone up. You can make regenerating heavy defensive unit lone up, or you can get your nasty shooting unit lone up. So you have like the old Forge Fiend idea of you can shoot for free, and at the same time you can protect the very nasty pushing unit from taking too much fire. So it's another stratagem. Those two, this one and the reactive move, are just the one of the best stratagems in the game, and they just define this detachment. Like especially because you still have your animation, and they allow you to spread the damage over multiple units, so your animation actually matters. So it's not really about not letting your opponent hit you at all. It's about they cannot focus enough damage in one place because of those two stratagems if you play it right. And I think that makes this detachment so good.
Okay.
And then we have the last one, suboptimal facade. It's actually quite suboptimal stratagem also. It's basically if your yeah, but basically if your canoptic unit is within power matrix, when it's when there is a charge declare added, you get to reanimate. I wouldn't say is the worst stratagem you can have, because in some cases it's just that a little bit more survivability you can get. It's just if you reanimate a model in very edge cases, you can like block your opponent from going around you, because it's you reanimate
Bring a guy back.
declares you bring a guy back just after your opponent declare charge. So for example, multiple times I had this situation that they're gonna try to charge around on objective, and you just bring a guy back that don't allow them straight up go behind you and on the objective. Or that's I had it once, it didn't like came up because I told my opponent that I can do it. But if your opponent declares like a multi-charge, and you could block like the allowance to charge the second unit behind you, if you get one more model, it can be very devastating. So it's very situational. It requires you to have a power matrix, which is like more difficult than just straight up moving away and lone up. But it has its uses.
Okay, right. So those were the stratagems for the Canoptic Court, and you're saying this is the detachment to play, right? With this book.
Yeah. I think that's one giving you the most like the potential to show your skill. Like on the one hand, the units you are playing with are extremely easy to use to be decent. But what this detachment does to them, it makes you, if you play your cards right, where if you like plan ahead, it gives you so much strength and outplay potential that I think it's the just straight up best on detachment. I can see, for like the reasons we're gonna get into detail later, it might not be the highest scoring one from the Necrons detachments, but I think it's the one that is at the same time very easy to play, and it have like the highest skill cap, the highest of them all. Like it's easy to pick up, very hard to master, but if you master it, you're gonna do very well.
Okay, that's an interesting opinion. I would have thought that the hypercrypt with all the movement shenanigans is more of a higher skill ceiling.
It looks
Uh,
like it, but like when you get to the details, which we'll do in I think with the second part
Part,
of
yep.
the yeah, there there's a lot of stuff you don't really need to think about. You just do it every turn, and it's just quite simple in the hypercrypt.
Sure. Well, we'll get to the hypercrypt, but first we've got the obeisance phalanx. Uh, Another detachment, the fourth one.
Hmm.
So the rule they have is in your command phase, you can select an enemy unit, and until the start of your next command phase, each time an Overlord, Lich Guard, or Triarch unit makes an attack that targets that unit, add 1 to the wound roll.
Hmm.
Which doesn't sound that bad, except that those are mostly units that don't really fight long range, do they?
You can make some warriors or immortals with Overlord in it, and it's
Oh
gonna
yeah,
give them
because
this buff.
again, yeah, true.
Yeah. So this one is, I think, very close to the Awakened Dynasty, and they can fight for the third place, but just as with the Awakened Dynasty, just overshadowed with the Hypercryptic and Optic. But as you said, the +1 to wound doesn't seem bad, and I agree, it's not bad, but
Mm,
it still suffers the same problem that how it's called, the Space Marines had, which is, do your opponent have more than 5 units that you need to kill to win the game? If the answer is yes, you don't have enough turns to even use it, right? Because
mm,
you're gonna like target 5 units during the game with +1 to wound, and without it and without other rules that other detachments can give you, some of the stuff is not as efficient as it could be. Although there is like one very very good, no, maybe not one, but this like at least one very good stratagem in it that allows this detachment to maybe be played if something in basically if the hypercrypt and canoptic gets nerfed. But
mm-hmm.
as it is for now, this is like a tie between the Awakened Dynasty and the Obeisance Phalanx, though I think Obeisance Phalanx is a little bit worse.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Okay, so let's go through the enhancements then. So first one, honorable combatant. So all of these are for Overlord models only.
Mhm.
Each time the burst unit destroys an enemy character, your opponent loses 1 CP if they have any, which is interesting. But
The
uh,
sky need to align, stars need to align. You need the
yeah,
Orican in your army to just say you when this is gonna happen, and you pick this guy to go on this flank and find this guy and kill it with precision with his 3 attacks. It's very unlikely, but if it happens, yeah, you
oh,
be
it's burst unit and an enemy character unit, so it's not that bad. I mean, I guess you could have some immortals shooting, maybe,
yeah, yeah,
maybe.
maybe,
But
yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
it's not an obvious one. So it's interesting because I can't recall a similar mechanic anywhere. So well, it gets at least that a note that it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Unflinching will, melee weapons have precision and anti-infantry 5-up abilities. It's only for the bearer, which is very much meh. Uh,
Yeah, it's basically give you flat 3 dev wounds on your overlord, but he have only like overlord with a huge void sight. He have
mm,
only 3 attacks, but if you have like automatic precision, and if you like trying to kill, I don't know, like a chaos lord leading a unit, and you have this enhancements, there's a pretty good chance you can kill him.
mm,
It's not a great one for how much it costs. If it was like 10 points, it would be quite okay for what it costs. I think you can straight up skip it. But, it's not that like unplayable at all.
Mm-hmm. Warrior Noble, -1 to hit in melee for the bearer's unit, and Eternal Conqueror. Whenever you target an enemy within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the hit roll. That one's okay-ish, I would say.
I think it's actually the best one, and it's very
The
good.
best one
Like,
here, yeah.
yeah, I think the 4-year-old to hit, especially if you think about other stuff that you will see in this detachment, can be very strong. Because, for example, you can have like 20-man warriors unit that will have the 4-year-old to hit, and they still can have other stuff in it. Like, you're gonna talk about it later, though. Like,
Hmm.
it's quite okay. Like, you can have Lich Guard rerolling full hits. It's fine.
And moving on to the stratagems. So when your time is nigh, for 1 CP, if you destroy the enemy warlord, uh, then until the end of the battle, each time enemy units take battle shock or leadership tests, subtract 1 from the result. Very, very situational.
Mm-hmm.
Enslaved, Artifice, 1 CP, 5 up critical hits.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that can make use of that?
Yeah, it is. So I think
So,
that one being battle
mhm,
tactic,
yeah.
and
Oh,
you
and
can lethal hits
on
from like
Immortals, right?
on immortals, warriors. It can actually, I think, target one Necron from army. Yeah, so it also works for stuff that is not led by Overlord. So you
Mm-hmm.
can make like some not Titanic vehicles that have like sustaining hits hit better, which is Doomside. So you
Mm-hmm.
can have your 6 Doomside shots with Tesla explode on 5s, and there's 3 shots which are sustained D3, huge anti-tank shots explode on 5s. It can be
Yep.
really strong, especially as it is a battle tactic, and you will have a lot of overlords. I mean, a lot. You will have some overlords in your list that will give you ability to use a free stratagem. I think this one is one of the stratagems which makes this army this detachment actually playable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a good one to have considering the profiles in the army. If it was working on not only non-Titanic units, it would be really great. As it is now, it's just good.
Mm-hmm. No, but you don't want a monolith benefiting from any of this, do you?
No, it would be too broken, man. Someone will stop playing Canoptech and Hypercrit.
Yeah, exactly. Then we've got nano assembly protocols, so that's -1 damage for your Necron vehicle, which is
Very good.
kind of it's good. Yes, it's just interesting that it's in this detachment, just kind of popping out of nowhere. But never mind
Well,
that.
it's kinda trying to be a Silent King detachment also, and can
And
make
I
Silent
guess,
King -1 damage.
yeah, and the command barge, right, as well. That's
Yeah,
also an
yeah,
overlord
exactly.
essentially. So yeah, I guess
Yeah,
maybe.
like it's actually quite okay.
Yeah, no, definitely -1 damage. In 10th is pretty solid, kind of because it's not that common.
Hmm.
So it's always good to have. Sentinels of Eternity. So that's a fight on death on a 4-up for a Lich Guard or Triarch Praetorian unit. Suffer no rival again for Lich God or Triarch units.
It's just
They get
precision.
precision in melee, yes. And then the last one, again, Lich God Triarch units. They get +1 to OC.
Hmm.
If your unit has the vehicle keyword, add 3 to the OC characteristic
Yeah,
instead.
because the Triarch Stalker
Stalker?
exists. Yeah.
Yeah, but does he
That's
have
only
the
for
Triarch
him.
Praetorian? Because it's specifically Lich Guard or Triarch
Triarch unit.
Praetorian's
No, no,
unit.
no, no. Target
No.
one Lich Guard or Triarch unit from your army.
Oh, maybe it's printed wrong in the Codex.
Yeah, yeah. In the app, it's Triarch unit, not
Ah,
Triarch
okay. Then
Praetorian.
it
So
makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was a fake unit. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, an interesting one, but yeah,
Quite good
I
one to
wonder
have.
if yeah, but I mean this detachment in general. I'm quite interested to see if it will see some play if anything happens to the court or the hypercrypt or the units that are most popular within
Mm-hmm.
those. So yeah, one to look out for maybe. And last but not least, the aforementioned hypercrypt legion. So the detachment rule hyperphasing is basically the same that Grey Knights have. So
No,
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 okay,
because you are put into strategic reserves, which means
yeah, fair.
some of the like you if you don't have deep strike or you don't use one of the stratagems in the detachment, you cannot come in turn one if you're going second. And you also usually gonna come out of the board, like edges of the board, and some of the interactions it's not like you like Grey Knights don't arrive from strategic reserves basically, and Necrons do for purposes of this detachment. But it like it's the wording difference. It essentially do almost the same.
Mm,
So you can pick up to 3 units in like standard 2000 points game at the end of your opponent's turn.
okay, you've caught me on a technicality there, but we've got it covered now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the enhancements then, a dimensional overseer. Uh,
You
so
can.
you can pick up one more unit.
Yep,
Very
that's
good
it.
thing
Yeah, 10
to
points,
have.
very good.
Yep. A Risen Tyrant, a reroll of one, or if you've just come in from reserves or anywhere, then you can reroll the hit roll instead.
Mm-hmm.
Also a pretty good one. Hyperspatial transfer node. Uh, so whenever you advance, you just add 6 rather
Mm-hmm.
than rolling. And Osteoclave Fulcrum. I'm pretty sure this is not how you pronounce it, but well, peeps, let me know. Models in the burst unit have the deep strike ability. So all 4 of these uh, very much tie in into the detachment rule. You can take it on any character essentially because it's Necron's model only.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously no epic heroes, but you get the drift, and all of these are actually quite good.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think you actually need to pick quite a bit of those enhancements for the hypercrypt list to like actually shine. Like
Hmm.
the Furrier to hit works very well with the little hits and like sustain hits some other units have. The giving your unit deep strike ability is something that can give you turn one coming on the table if you're going second. Otherwise, you can only use one of the stratagems to do that. Uh, it's a very, very good one to have because, like, some of the shooting units you're gonna pick, like Locust Destroyers, don't have built-in deep strike, and they very benefit from having like better line of sights somewhere in the middle of the board too. So all of those are actually quite good. Even the Auto 6 Advanced, like if you pick Tesla Immortals uh, that have assault weapons, if you advance them 6 inches every turn, it's like very, very cool thing to have. Or even like, I don't know, you pick a freight unit and they can advance turn one 16 inches.
Yep. Yep, so all of these have a use. And then the stratagems, we've got hyperphasic recall for 2 CP. That's a good one. So you can pick up a Necron's infantry unit if it's lost any models as a result of attacking units' attacks, and then set it up wholly within 6 of a monolith.
Mhm. Okay, so basically this detachment have one or two stratagems if you're not playing monolith. If you play monolith, then like more than half of the stratagems unlock. This one is very cool one, and that's basically a reason you want to have monolith in your list. After your opponents deal some damage to your unit, you just gonna like recall it near the monolith. Also, by recalling it, in some cases you can like take objective from your opponent and so on. It's a very strong one to have, though 2 CP is a quite steep price for
Mm-hmm.
what it does. Sometimes maybe, I mean, I think it's well balanced for it to have 2 CP to do it. The
Yeah,
cool fact
100%.
is it says infantry unit, and because Technomancer is an infantry model, and him being in the Wraiths unit makes them infantry unit. You can
Mm-hmm.
also use it on Wraiths, which is quite cool. But the usual way to use it is you're gonna have like 20-man unit of warriors denying your opponent primary, and the first time they're gonna try to deal with it, you're just gonna recall it near the monolith. And
Mm-hmm.
unless your opponent kills the unit in one go or deals like massive damage to the Necron Warriors blob, you will have this unit next turn ready to go and deny your opponent's primary again.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so quite the combo that you can have here. Then we've got Quantum Deflection. That's a 4-up invulnerable for one of your vehicles.
Mhm.
Reanimation Crypts for 1 CP. So you can activate
Okay.
reanimation protocols for units in the reserves. But is it just
Mhm.
for one unit or
All the units. If
all
your
the
warlord
units?
is alive, all the units in reserve start to reanimate.
That's
Yeah.
also quite a good deal for 1 CP, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Especially because you're gonna be picking up your units a lot, right? So.
yeah, like every turn. Then Cosmic Precision for 1 CP is a 3-inch deep strike.
Mhm.
That has obviously seen a lot of play with some interesting things happening in the LVO final earlier
Mhm.
this year. Dimensional Corridor 2 CP, so you can charge out of a monolith basically, because normally if you relocate your unit using the monolith, you can't charge afterwards, but with a stratagem, you can.
Mhm.
And entropic damping for 1 CP. That is also for a monolith, and if it was targeted by something within 18 inches, then the weapons in that unit have the hazardous ability.
Mhm.
So quite an interesting one as well.
Yeah, very situational. So as you quite notice, I think at this point, you have like four stratagems that are tailored for you to have monolith. The hazardous one, which is very cool against some units like Alarus Custodes. For some reason, if they're gonna shoot monolith, they will
Mm,
need to take 12, like 6-man unit of them will need to take 12 hazardous roll, and every
yep.
one is a Decalarus, which is kind of cool. Then you have the Forap Invun just to make it more durable. It also works on different vehicles, but Monolith is a very good target for it. If someone have like AP4, AP5 weapons or ignore cover AP4, so quite a good one. Then you have the relocation to when someone attacks you, and you have charge after the relocation to monolith. Like 4 of them are basically, if you have a monolith, you're gonna have tools to play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And what would you say about the Hypercrypt in general? I think it's number 2 in your ranking.
Mhm. Very close number 2. Like, in my opinion, Hypercrypt have a potential to score bigger wins,
Mm-hmm.
but at some point you go back to the problem that Necrons have on index. That is, if your opponent have a good profiles against your units and your list, you just don't have like a good way out. You can try to
Mm-hmm.
scrape 4 points, but you don't have outplay mechanics to deal with it. Because, for example, the teleporting unit back to monolith, if someone just one shots it, you're not gonna do it. Also, in this detachment, very often what you can see is a lot of Catan that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be played, but still, more often than not, they will need to have like a turn. When they arrive, they fail their attempt on a 9-inch charge, and they need to survive a turn before they're gonna do anything else. Or you deep strike them within 3 inches of your opponent, like one of them within 3 inches of your opponent, hoping that it's gonna survive for next turn. Because of the Catan being very good profiles to do that, they usually do. But if you
Mm-hmm.
fight something that can actually deal with them, then you kind of fucked, because there's like not huge outplay potential of other than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. So we've covered the detachments themselves. Um, we're not going to go through all of the data sheets, but I am going to ask you if there are some notable changes from the index. I think the ctans have changed
Mm-hmm.
slightly because they just all have a 5-up feel no pain.
Yep.
Now they had a 4-up invuln before, right?
One of them could have an enhancement that is still in the game that give them for a Philippine. Now they just have straight 5+ Philippine base, all of
Mm-hmm.
them, and they don't get any point increase for that,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite good.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
good for the Necron players.
There are a couple more that we can mention. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna be basically all the bigger changes. First
Yep.
one is a honorable mention to the good old days of Canoptic Reanimator. The aura of this guy got changed from 12 inches to 3 inches, which makes him way less useful.
Mm-hmm.
And though in some cases can still be played because got a little bit cheaper, it still have 4-up feel no pain. So eh, can be played, but not as like centerpiece of some armies as it was
Mm-hmm.
before.
Yep.
And then we have Psychomancer getting a little bit better, but it's still like a niche pick to force your opponent to take battle shocks during your turn.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, and then you have the Locust Destroyers, the old Locust Destroyers, the small ones,
Yep.
which get full roll to hit if they target the closest unit and the unit is on an objective marker, which is actually quite a big change for them
Mm-hmm. And what were they
because
like? Yeah, what were they like before?
before they were just rerolling once when they were targeting the closest unit and they still
Mm-hmm.
have it. Now it is have like another paragraph that says if this enemy is the closest unit and on objective marker, you get to reroll all hit rolls, not only once, which is a big deal because they have little hits weapons and strength 5 but damage 2, which
Mm-hmm.
means before they couldn't deal with the like high toughness targets. Like basically the best thing they could kill is like a space marine, maybe Plague Marine. Now with the Furrier to hit and an option for them to get lethals on a 5-up. Because of the Locust Lord gives them that. If they lead the unit. They can be quite decent, especially in hypergrips. You can reposition them and so on. I think it doesn't seem that much play because it's at that point quite expensive unit. But overall, I think it's a very good change to make them a little bit better and actually viable. And the other change is the Scorpex destroyers get to reroll once to hit always and reroll all hits if they charge. Also, a very good change, makes them a little bit more killy. Before they had ignore modifiers to hit, which was usually just didn't matter, right? And now, like having +1 to hit, 4 reroll to hit is quite good actually. And that's all of them actually. Yeah.
The most noticeable ones. Right,
Yes.
so I dare say that we have covered the Necron Codex for our first part of this review.
One thing.
To...
One thing.
Please, go ahead.
Actually the like most important one, and also the one I play the most, the biggest change I forgot. Technomancer can now join raids, so they can get 5+ final pain, and they couldn't before. Yeah, that's a big one to miss.
Yeah, that's a significant one because that's what people are now playing all over the place. Yeah, I thought they could always join them. So
no, they lost the ability to join Lichguard, and now they can join raids. So as before, we see a lot of Lichguard with Technomancer. Now we see a lot of raids with Technomancer.
With Technomancer makes it all adds up, falls into place. Are we done now?
I think we're done now. Yeah, there will be no more interruptions.
Okay, thank you. So this concludes part 1 of our Necron Codex review. Part 2 will be the masterclass, available only to our Patreons and YouTube members. So if you want to hear that earlier than the wider public, do consider supporting us in this manner. For now, thank you, Gyto.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to our amazing sponsors, the Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani. Check out their pages and the links in the video description below. And check out our social medias as well, Facebook, Instagram, whatnot. And make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit the bell button. We'll be back shortly in the masterclass. Thank you, everyone. And see you there.